Hello and welcome to Living the Dream for General Practitioners, the podcast for doctors and clinic leaders who want to learn about pathways, strategies and opportunities for living and working in Australia. Join me, Gemma Gough, and my expert guests as we share stories, unlock the secrets to recruitment success, share tips for moving across the world, navigating new cultures and so much more. This show is brought to you by Health Recruitment Australia. Now sit back, relax and enjoy this episode. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Gemma Gough and I am a co-founder and the Managing Director of Health Recruitment Australia. Now, as a face of HRA, I wanted to share with you my story, my journey to Australia and my plans to share with you everything that I've learned during my own process of moving to Australia, my 2 decades of working in healthcare, in mentoring, in leadership, and my active involvement in GP recruitment for 2 general practice clinics that I've worked with since being in Australia. Now, I take you back to Christmas, December 2016. My husband and I were taking a much needed break and spending some time with our 2 sons. Then they were aged 9 and 13. And we were talking about what the future looks like if we were to stay living and raising the boys on Guernsey. Now, Guernsey is a Channel island, a group of islands between the south coast of the UK and France. Now, I was born and raised on Guernsey, as were our sons, and my husband is from the UK. So he moved to Guernsey when he was 17 and was living with family. And so a move to him was something he knew he could adjust to. So he for some time had been talking to me about moving overseas and giving the children more opportunity. And for a long time, I brushed it off and was thinking he was crazy. Like, we lived on Guernsey with my family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings, cousins, etc. Why on earth would I be wanting to leave all of them to go somewhere and start afresh? Well, this particular Christmas, we were really contemplating whether staying on Guernsey was the right thing to do. Property prices were getting ridiculously expensive. The cost of living in general was very expensive. Family holidays were a little bit more tricky to afford. What would the future look like for our children? Could they afford to buy a property? Could they afford to raise a family? Would we be in a position to financially support them in those big milestones? And the simple answer to that was no. So, we were both in steady jobs. We both had jobs we were good at, both jobs that we enjoyed. We loved our jobs. We loved the people we worked with. They were bridesmaids at our wedding. They were godparents to our children. We were all very close. So the thought of moving away was, for some time, as I say, not on the cards at all. But for us, the reality was that living on Guernsey long term was not going to be sustainable for us. So what were we going to do about it? Were we going to hope for a lotto win for someone else to dig us out of this hole, or were we going to get off our butts and do something ourselves? Well, that's exactly what we did. So we both agreed that we would jump onto Seek and apply for jobs, and whoever got the job somewhere overseas, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, wherever we were going to go, it would be somewhere that could offer, more opportunity for the children, somewhere where family and friends could come and visit quite easily. And it needed to be a business that was in a position to sponsor us. So we jumped onto Seek and we both sent off lots of applications. And then I would say around March 2017, I got an interview for a practice manager position in a clinic in Adelaide. Now, the time difference obviously is rather tricky when you're interviewing overseas. So it was about 4 a.m., I think, that I jumped onto Skype and had an interview with the general manager of this clinic. And it all sounded very positive and very exciting. And it really did sound like something that I would really enjoy. And I accepted an interview with the clinic owner the following week. So that went really well, and I was offered the position during the second Skype interview. And I remember ending the Skype call, and because of the time difference, my husband was still in bed, and I thought, gosh, we could actually make this work. We could actually move to Australia. How did I feel about that? Excited, nervous. Am I crazy? So I woke my husband up, and I explained to him that we were offered the job, and they were offering us sponsorship, and this could actually happen. And so we agreed that we would proceed. And I remember telling our families, well, that was interesting. My dad had travelled a lot when he was younger. My granddad was in the army. So for him, experiencing different cultures and travelling around the world, and he thought that was amazing. The rest of their family were all a bit sort of a mixed bag, to be honest. Some of them thought we would never do it, that it was just a whim, and it was just, something that we would not actually end up doing. Some thought we were absolutely crazy, and particularly given we have never been to Australia before, didn't know anybody in Adelaide. Why on earth would you up sticks and move to the other side of the world when you knew nobody there? What if it went wrong? So our friends and our work colleagues were exactly the same. They thought, why on earth would you move to the other side of the world? You're crazy, they'd say. So the next few months were pretty intense. So we were applying for visas. We were signing contracts for new employment. We had to reapply for our visas because the category that my visa was going to be submitted under was actually changed. So it didn't exist anymore. So we had to reapply for the visas again. So that was quite stressful. So even before our visas had been approved, we actually gave notice on our property. We rehomed pets. We sold all of our belongings. We really did decide to jump in with both feet, and people thought we were mad. Why on earth would you sell everything, give up your home and all your belongings when you haven't actually had your visas granted yet? But we just had the mindset that it was going to be okay. We were absolutely going to do it. This was meant for us. This was fate, if you like, that this job landed, in my inbox, and we were absolutely going to give it our best shot. So we literally sold everything. My husband and I had taken 2 weeks off work in the summer. So August had come, or July had come, and we had taken 2 weeks off with the boys again. Now, normally we would space it out. So I would take 2 weeks off, my husband would take 2 weeks off, and then we'd fly family over from the UK for a couple of weeks. And between us, we would be able to mind the children during the school holidays while the others would work. So this particular year, we decided not to do that. We were going to have our last 2 weeks, the four of us together. We were packing up everything. We shipped items, or we put items into storage ready for shipping. And we were moving into holiday lets. So we were actually giving up our home. It was the Monday morning of our the first day of our holiday. And I remember sitting in bed with my husband. We were drinking our morning coffees, and the children were sat on the bed, and we were talking about what it would be like if we, got the call this week while we were off to say our visas had been approved. And my mobile rang, and it was our migration agent, to say that she just had a quick question for me. She knew we were moving into holiday accommodation, but could I tell her how long it was for? I thought that was a rather odd question. So I said, well, at the moment we've just arranged it for a month, but we could extend that if we needed. And she said to me, well, you don't need to. She said, because your visas have been granted. She says, you can go when you're ready. And I remember spilling my drink. I was so excited, and I jumped up and I cried, and I thought, oh my gosh, we've done it. We're going. And the children looked at my husband and said, why is Mummy crying? What's happened? And my husband said, I think we just got our visas granted. So anyway, we all celebrated and we rang family and we told them, and my dad was really happy for us and said that, it was sad, but it was an amazing opportunity for us. And I remember ringing my gran, who was absolutely devastated. She sobbed on the phone. She was so upset because she didn't want us to go. And then that set me off crying again. So, the whole process is very emotional process to be going through. Now, I'd already written my letter of resignation because, again, I was confident that this was going to happen. And, we really believed in what we were doing. So I had an Australian flag that I'd bought as well. And so I went to work, and I waved the flag around and let everyone know that our visa had been approved. And there was lots of cheers and everyone was really happy for us. And then I handed in my notice. And it was a bit surreal because we knew that people had said things like, they're going to be sorry. They shouldn't be selling all their belongings. Their visas haven't been approved. They're absolutely crazy. They should have kept their property here. What if it doesn't work out? There's nothing to come back to. So yeah, it was a really surreal moment. So it was, those 2 weeks were busy packing up the rest of the house and moving into holiday accommodation. We managed to ship things. So we didn't ship a lot. We shipped some sport things, so golf clubs and, memory items that we wanted to keep hold of. But generally, we had sold absolutely everything that we owned. We had, so September time was my last day at work. So my husband and I had both finishing work, and we had a week or so before we were actually flying out to the UK. So we'd had sort of leaving parties and handovers at work and things like that. We had a lovely big leaving party with so many people had come to wish us well. It was just lovely. Very emotional, again, saying bye to everybody and having lots of photos taken. And people kept giving us gifts to take. And it was really difficult because we had no room in our luggage and we'd already shipped everything to Australia. So, and we had to leave some of that with family back in Guernsey. So then we flew to the UK, and we spent a few days with Will's family, with their cousins and the nieces and nephews and his siblings, and said goodbye to his parents. And again, more emotions. And then my husband's mum dropped us off at Manchester Airport, which is where we were going to fly to Abu Dhabi. Now, we stayed overnight in the hotel because we had a really early start. And I remember we were sat in the restaurant having our evening meal and saying to the children, "This is it. We're going. How do you feel?" And they didn't know. None of us knew. It was very strange. And I just remember feeling physically drained from all the goodbyes and, people saying, "Are you sure you're making the right decision?" And it was odd. We didn't even have anywhere to stay when we arrived in Adelaide. So we had an Airbnb booked we had holiday accommodation booked for about 3 days for when we arrived. But we had nothing booked from them. It turns out that all the Airbnbs were full because we were arriving during Australian school holidays. So everything was booked up and we just couldn't get in anywhere. And it's very difficult to lock in a rental in Australia from overseas. So, but again, we sort of held on to the hope that we had an agent working on it, and that I'm sure by the time we got there and within those 3 days, we would have locked in, an Airbnb or a short-term rental or something would come up. It would be okay. So we got on our flight from Manchester. We flew to Abu Dhabi and checked the emails in Abu Dhabi. And thankfully, we got accommodation. So we had something just for a month, but that's okay. That gave us a month to find something else. So it was one less thing to worry about at that time. So then we caught a flight from Abu Dhabi to Perth, and then we went from Perth to Adelaide. So we'd actually gone from Guernsey to Manchester, Manchester to Abu Dhabi to Perth, and then Perth to Adelaide. Gosh, it's a lot of time zones. We were really tired and very confused what day and time it was. We were greeted at the airport by the owner of the clinic that I was to be working with, and that was lovely. So the owner, the general manager, and one of the practice managers at the time had met us at the airport with this beautiful Aussie pom hamper. So a hamper full of things from the UK and from Australia, and they really did make us feel very welcome. So they took us to our temporary accommodation, and we had a couple of days just to relax and, sort of just process what had happened over the last couple of days and really focus on what we were going to be doing going forward. We needed to get the children's schools. We needed to get my husband a job. We had to buy a car. We had to buy the entire contents of a house. So we knew we had a lot to be doing, in addition to me starting my job as a practice manager. So, and learning all sorts of new things. So we needed those few days just to sort of gather our thoughts and to get the right mindset for going forward. So, my first day at work was interesting. There was new faces, new names. There was this thing called bulk bill. What was bulk billing? I had to learn all about Medicare. I was essentially given a set of keys, and here's the keys to the building. This is your office. And you've got accreditation coming in a couple of months. Like, great. What's that? So, it was pretty crazy. But I was so lucky to have some amazing people to be working with that, with their help and lots of research, we sort of, lots of research, for me in my time to learn all about accreditation, bulk billing, Medicare, just general practice in Australia as a whole. We flew through accreditation without any issues, which was fantastic. So fast forward almost 7 years. So actually feels a lot longer than that, but it's 7 years that my family and I have been in Australia now. And we're still here. We are loving life in Australia. I'm still working with the same clinic that I joined all those years ago. And we have passed several accreditations now across the two locations with no non-conformities. And it's actually one of my favourite times. I sincerely love accreditation. I love to educate the team on all things accreditation and make sure that we would essentially be ready for accreditation all year round. We don't get ready for accreditation. This is something that we adhere to throughout the years, and something that we're actually all quite passionate about here, which is rather lovely. We've worked very hard to recruit lots of new GPs for our two clinics, from all over the world, from within Australia, from the UK, from Hong Kong, from all over the world. And we've got a really wonderful team here and have learned a lot through the highs and lows of general practice recruitment. And I had the opportunity last year to co-found Health Recruitment Australia with John McMahon, who is the owner of the clinic that I work with. And I am truly honoured to work with such a man. He is incredible. He has taught me so much about business. He is a man with integrity like no other. And I am truly honoured to be in business with him. And he pushes me to be the best version of myself, which in turn makes me do that for others that I work with. And I have a real passion for leadership and mentoring, which I think you can feel within the clinic. We all take on that responsibility for making each other accountable and to push each other to be the best version of ourselves. And I'm very grateful for that. In July of 2023 was when we launched Health Recruitment Australia. It's not just a recruitment company, and I truly don't believe it's a recruitment company like any other. And that's not a criticism to other companies. I'm saying that I feel this company is different. I feel because I've worked in general practice or in healthcare for such a long time. Back in Guernsey, I used to run an obstetric, paediatric and gynecology department. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And so having worked in the industry for a long time, I think that does put me in good stead to support other leaders in general practice with their recruitment needs. I have a saying within the clinic that no question is a silly question, that you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know something, ask. That's the only way you're going to learn and expand your knowledge on something. So HRA is an environment where other leaders and other GPs can contact HRA and ask questions about recruitment without judgment, without prejudice, where we will be genuinely pleased to help you to learn more about the recruitment round. It really is, or can be, overwhelming. There is so much red tape. There are so many loopholes. There are so many pathways that GPs can go down that, you can't possibly know it all unless you've experienced it. And that's what HRA is about. It's about sharing the knowledge with other leaders so that you can share your knowledge with others, that everybody benefits. The GPs that we're working with are passionate, they're skilled, they're driven, they really want to work with proactive clinics in Australia. They want to move to Australia for a better future, more opportunity. So like I did with my family, they're looking for someone to take a chance on them and their families, like John did with me. HRA is already making great strides in providing education to those in primary care, establishing relationships with leaders who are looking to learn more about GP recruitment, to be the best versions of themselves, asking questions that they don't know and taking the time to learn about the GP recruitment and how they can help their clinics to grow and to be more sustainable, not just to bring in GPs for now, but planning for the future. There are so many things that you can do to make sure that you've got a regular flow of GPs coming into your clinics. So that's basically my story. Life is good. We bought a home here now in Adelaide, just before the pandemic. Thank you, interest rate. The boys are thriving, despite everyone's concerns about, the boys being the wrong age to move. That's actually not been the case. They have great friendship circles here. They're really into their sports. They've had opportunity to experience things that they never would have in Guernsey. We're very passionate about what we're doing here in Australia, and it's probably spending more time outdoors than we would have in Guernsey. And we're very outdoorsy people, but kayaking, camping, fishing, beach days, doing many more things here than we would have back in Guernsey. Although I have to say that we still haven't mastered the Aussie barbecue. I cannot cook on the barbecue and not burn it, so must practice that a bit more. But most importantly, we wanted our boys to experience things that they never would have on Guernsey, and as I say, they really are doing that now. It was tough when the borders shut through COVID. That did make you realise how far away you were from family and friends. But technology is marvellous now, and you can keep in touch without, too much trouble. So don't let that be a reason why, you wouldn't move to Australia if it's something you're thinking of doing. So all in, I think we've done well, considering we were selling things and planning to move without, actually ever being in Australia or knowing anybody in Adelaide. It was a big, brave move. We jumped in with both feet. We were confident that it was going to work, and we really have given it our all. And I feel so fortunate to be in a position now where I can share all of what I've learned over the years with anybody who wants to expand their knowledge in GP recruitment and migration and just generally moving overseas. So I'm excited to see what the future holds. I think as a family, we've achieved quite a lot in such a short time, and the future is bright. HRA is doing so well, and I can't wait to help more leaders and general practices to find GPs that are a great fit for their clinic and to support you in learning all about GP recruitment and growing your teams for the future. So thanks so much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed listening to my story, my journey, and how I ended up here in Australia. And if HRA can help you with anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here and happy to help. Thanks so much. See ya. Bye. Thank you for listening to Living the Dream for General Practitioners. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. At Health Recruitment Australia, we want to see more happy GPs, thriving medical practices and healthy communities. If you'd like to join us on our mission, visit healthrecruitmentaustralia.com.au to explore opportunities and get in touch. Thanks for listening.